To provide nutrition for the family's only younger brother, my superstitious mother turned me into fresh meatballs. She fed them to my brother, bite by bite. Little did she know, I didn't die. Instead, I grew larger and larger inside my brother's belly. Tong Tong, were you tired at school today? Come, let mom give you a hug, and your sister will carry your school bag. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, my third grade brother Tong Tong came home from school. Mom, dragging me, who was cutting pig grass, rushed to the school. I took the patched school bag from my brother's hands and watched them walk away. The bag was very light, much lighter than the pig grass I cut this afternoon. On the way, Mom and Tong Tong chatted and laughed, while I walked alone at a distance, because I came from the field in a hurry. My clothes and shoes were dirty, and there was an indelible sweat smell on me. My brother disliked that I embarrassed them, and asked me to stay away. As for my mom, after giving me a stern look, she walked away with my brother. Mom, I want to eat meat tonight. It's been a long time since I had it. My brother's voice suddenly entered my ears. Okay, well listen to Tong Tong. When your sister grows up a bit more, our family will be better. Mom's voice was low, as if afraid I would hear. I raised my head suddenly, staring at Mom intently. Perhaps my gaze was too intense. They turned around and glanced at me. Then I saw Mom smile a little at the corner of her mouth. Tong Tong, when your sister gets married, everything will be fine. By then, we'll have meat to eat. I calmed my breath, and a tear fell from my cheek. I actually knew it long ago. Mom had already made a deal with the village matchmaker to marry me to her son, but the matchmaker's son was over 30, had a violent temper, loved to beat people, and was one of the worst guys in the village. I couldn't imagine what kind of life I would have after marrying him. I thought about running away, but everyone in the village knew me. Where could I go? I was only 14. When I returned home at night, I cooked the only remaining food in the house. I had already told Dad that we were running out of rice, but he still didn't buy any. This amount of food wouldn't be enough for 4 people, so I planned to pick some vegetables from the field to fill our stomachs. Mom played with my brother in the room, and their laughter could be heard from time to time. After cooking the meal, I was about to leave and finish cutting the pig grass I hadn't finished in the afternoon, but Dad came back. As soon as he entered, he shouted at me, "Hey, haven't you seen that I'm almost starving to death? Go get the food. What are you standing there for?" Helpless, I had to tidy up the table and prepare for the meal. Dad had drunk a lot. His face was red, and coupled with his fierce appearance, he looked even more terrifying. After a moment of contemplation, I decided to tell Dad about the lack of rice at home. Otherwise, there would be no breakfast tomorrow, and I would be beaten again. "Dad, we're out of rice, and there's not much left for vegetables." Dad seemed not to have heard. I hesitated a bit, but to avoid a beating, I repeated it. At the moment when the words fell, a pair of bowls and chopsticks were thrown at my head. "If there's none, there's none. Why say it so many times? You, this money-losing thing, can't you let me worry less every day?" With a bang, my vision became a bit blurred. Someone supported me. "What are you doing? If you beat her to death, we won't get any money." This wasteful daughter can't even compare to half of Tong Tong. Faintly, I heard my brother crying and my mom questioning. Before my consciousness disappeared, my brother's words made me shudder. "Mom, do we have meat to eat now?" Before I could carefully think about the meaning of this sentence, I passed out. When I woke up again, I found myself floating in the air. There was no patch of skin left on me. That was still intact. The pain was still stimulating my brain nerves. Heavens had eyes, not letting me die unclearly. I saw Mom and Dad put the meat they had cut from me into a copper jar and placed it on the table. There were several incense sticks in front of it. "Do you think this girl will seek revenge on us?" "I'm still a little scared." Mom was talking to Dad in front of the table. "We have no choice. Anyway, she's useless now, and will benefit the family. When Tong Tong has achievements in the future, we'll make him thank you properly." Mom's words echoed by my side. "It's ridiculous. Am I of no use to this family other than selling for money?" I felt the knives carving into me one by one, from my arms to my thighs. Blood flowed down my skin, causing a shiver. The pain deepened bit by bit, and I felt my consciousness slipping away. I was about to disappear from this world, die in this broken shed, at the hands of this family of evildoers. In the moment before I collapsed, I suddenly opened my eyes, and bloody tears flowed from my eyes. I saw their greedy faces gradually turning into looks of horror. "So, you can be afraid too?" "Mom, Dad." When consciousness recovered again, I found that my whole person was floating in the air. There was no piece of skin on me that was still intact. The pain was still stimulating my brain nerves. Heavens had eyes, not letting me die unclearly. I saw Mom and Dad put the meat they had cut from me into a copper jar and placed it on the table. There were several incense sticks in front of it. Do you think this girl will seek revenge on us? I'm still a little scared. Mom was talking to Dad in front of the table. We have no choice. Anyway, she's useless now, and will benefit the family. When Tong Tong has achievements in the future, well, make him thank you properly. Mom's words echoed by my side. It's ridiculous. Am I of no use to this family other than selling for money? I felt the knives carving into me one by one, from my arms to my thighs. Blood flowed down my skin, causing a shiver. The pain deepened bit by bit, and I felt my consciousness slipping away. I was about to disappear from this world, die in this broken shed, at the hands of this family of evildoers. In the moment before I collapsed, I suddenly opened my eyes, and bloody tears flowed from my eyes. I saw their greedy faces gradually turning into looks of horror. So, you can be afraid too. Mom, Dad. When consciousness returned again, I found myself floating in the air. There was no patch of skin left on my body that was unharmed. The pain continued to stimulate my brain nerves. Heavens had eyes, sparing me from dying in such obscurity. I saw Mom and Dad putting the meat they had cut from me into a copper jar, placing it on the table. In front, there were a few lit incense sticks. Do you think this girl will seek revenge on us? I'm still a little scared. Mom was talking to Dad at the table. She dares not. I've fed her well all these years. Her life and death are still in my hands. There's not much meat on her anyway, and she's been eating our food for so many years. Dad's face was calm, but his trembling hands revealed unusual information. Anyway, she's already gone. Let it be. The room was left with only candlelight, dimly lit, and carrying a hint of eeriness. I couldn't sleep. In the middle of the night, I wandered outside. No one could see me. Suddenly, in front of the shaman's temple, I stopped. Creak tilde. The door opened. I saw a figure tremblingly walking out. It was the shaman. Poor child. It's truly heartbreaking. She extended her wrinkled hand and tapped me on the head. My form seemed to solidify a bit. I was also somewhat cleaner. She touched my head and gently traced the wound on my head. All things have causes and effects. Just watch. After saying this, she entered the temple. Early the next morning, I saw Mom taking out some meat from the copper jar. Strangely, even after a night, the meat still had a fresh red color, with a pungent smell of blood. For some reason, Mom hesitated a bit, her face showing some uncertainty. I watched coldly as she struggled in her decision. Mom's hand picked up and put down the meat, but upon hearing my brother's shout, she quickly picked up that piece of meat. I saw her chop the meat into fine mince with a knife, kneading it into balls, and steaming it in a pot. The aroma filled the entire room, yet, it carried a slightly pungent smell, though they never noticed. Tong Tong, come out for dinner. My brother's eyes gleamed with gold at the sight of the meatballs. Mom, if we eat this, will sister be gone? Sister left last night. This is what she left for us. Tong Tong, eat without worries. I could never understand why my brother held such malice towards me. Even though I treated him well, I watched as my brother swallowed the meatballs one by one. His face showed a satisfied expression, an expression a child shouldn't have. The corners of my mouth stretched wider. Eat, the more, the better. Since then, Mom would take out meat every day to make meatballs for my brother. Nourished by the meat, my brother's physique became stronger and stronger. His craving for meat became more intense. His personality became more like Dad's. Irritable, prone to tantrums, and even physically violent. He had already harmed others several times at school, leading to his expulsion. Tong Tong, why don't you quit studying? That principal is blind and doesn't recognize how smart you are. It's a waste of time. When Mom led my brother out, her face was full of resentment. I chuckled. She really dared to say anything. The school waived our fees since we were poor, but my dear brother still used foul language, lacked respect for teachers and students, and even resorted to physical violence. His grades were consistently at the bottom, and even the principal couldn't tolerate him anymore. How could she blame the school? After dropping out, my dear brother idled at home all day. My dear mother couldn't bear to see her precious son suffer. She let him lie around at home every day. But when I was a child, before dawn, I had to do laundry, cook, and go out to farm. Yet, my dear brother could lie at home and enjoy everything. Hatred almost enveloped my entire being. No matter, this suits me well. Every day, I watched my brother rummage through everything in the house. At first, it was my parents' room. He opened the bed, crouched down, and searched for something. Later, it was the kitchen, the well, the grass shed. His eyes were filled with desire. Bloodshot, he seemed to fall into a frenzy. The climax was about to begin. I remembered what the shaman had said to me. A smile involuntarily formed on my lips. Look, retribution has arrived. My dear parents hadn't noticed that my brother's belly was growing bigger and bigger. They just thought that with meat, his body naturally grew taller, but they couldn't imagine that every time my brother ate meat, he would go mad like a savage at night. However, just before my parents were about to discover, he would quickly compose himself, welcoming them with a smiling face. HMPH tilde truly hypocritical. On the night of the Ghost Festival, Mom prepared a meal as usual, consisting of the unchanged meatballs. Before the dishes were even placed, my brother had already started devouring them. Tong, have you gained weight recently? Your belly has grown a lot. Mom sat on the side, looking worried. I leaned against the wall, and when my brother's face changed, his eyes showed a hint of avoidance. It's okay, Mom's meatballs are just too delicious. The pot of meatballs on the table was already empty, and all the meatballs were swallowed by my brother. The corners of my mouth stretched wider. That night, my figure became more solid. I entered my brother's room, and the room was filled with a heavy gloom. I saw my brother open his eyes groggily, and then followed me step by step into the kitchen, leading him into the cellar, that was the sanctuary of my body. Upon opening the door, a strong smell of blood rushed out. My brother rushed forward. He used his hands to move the stones that were pressing on the vat, then scooped up the still fresh, red raw meat. He took a bite, as if it were a divine delicacy. He savored it. I felt a bit nauseated, but also greatly appreciated the scene.